The IEA provides support for people from the less favored country to attend, but ITER as such, of course, belongs to the ITER members. Okay. And this is what we thought.
So we have one there, one at the back, and then one here.
So one question, Athina Kapatu from IVP. Session is visions, so that's what I'm going to ask for. So I'm looking forward personally to Spark, I'm looking forward to ITER, but of course we're already thinking about the next step. So in terms of an EU demo, leaving aside what that machine is or looks like, how do we envision this happening? In a sense, is it a nation building it? Sounds a little bit tough in terms of such a big project. Is it EU-wide? Is it the EU Commission funding it? Is it which structure builds it? Which structure pays for it? This is a difficulty I have, and I'd like to ask your opinion. Maybe this goes to Ambrogio mostly. What's your vision? Is there a private funding coming into play, or how do we want this to happen?
How does EU demo get funded, essentially? Where is it drawing from?
How do we manage it?
Okay, so first of all, we don't have the exact same capitalist structure as United States and
Thank God.
In the same kind of, you can say that. We don't have the same. We don't have the same. So it's unlikely that we find a super zillionaire who, one of these days comes in and say, I have the money for demo. So I think it's going to be a government enterprise. And when I say government, I mean the European government with all the nexus, because we have not just the European Union, as you know. I think that's the way forward. But in partnership with the private investors that may, of course, be European, hopefully, but not only. And that would be the way to go with a partnership where the two worlds are combined and where the leadership is also shared. But it has to be initiated at the European level. So our vision from Eurofusion has to become a European vision, and that's what we're doing now, discussing with Fusion for Energy, which is, of course, the procurement agency for ITER, but not only, they are also supposed to work on demo. So far, they haven't had the time, but this is important to coordinate, at least, let's speak of Europe, about Europe for the moment, at least the European level, all the efforts and going in the direction of demo as swiftly as possible. And also, and this is one topic we didn't mention, but I think it's important to mention also together to find a simplification for the licensing procedures in Europe. And should I say maybe in continental Europe, because UK, like US, has a much easier path, and we don't. No country I know of has a simple approach there, and that's one of the crucial steps. Of course, them will be hosted in one specific country, part of the union or part of the consortium, and that's the way to do it. But where there will be licensing.
There are maybe some lessons from the UK, because they've got this relationship where the government is getting more enthusiastic about putting money in, and the private sector is pulling behind that. And, I think we all think, how can we make that happen in our country? So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Gentleman at the back.
Hello. My name is Koki.
Oh, it's Koki. Hello, Koki.
Hi, Richard. Hi. I have a short question on the closer. Is that better?
You're very clear.
Thank you. So my question's on the subject of public relation and possibly also with the policymakers. So it is great that we are seeing so many new startup companies working on a different concept of fusion for the greater good. Now, some of them will hopefully succeed in the near future, but unfortunately, some of them might fail. So my concern is that due to the unfortunate way the social media works, some of these failures could be a sensationally bad publicity to the entire fusion community. So the question is, do we have any measures in place to mitigate possible such bad publicities that may happen in the future?
One answer from the United States perspective is the public sector is trying to help the private sector because they're aware of that risk. But who would like to address that question?
Some private companies need to fail. We cannot avoid it. And this will have a negative impact, yes.
Can we mitigate? Yes.
First of all, I'm not sure the success or failure is always such a binary concept in our world. Second of all, as long as we, like Alberto was saying, have openness and transparency and communication, every failure will be a very valuable piece of information for those that do not fail, if we want to use this verb. I think openness will really be the solution for addressing this.
Go on,
I
Alberto.
think that that's the point. I think that if the various approaches clearly state what is the objective and the risk, when you take a risk, it means it may go wrong, but it also means that, it may go faster. So then everybody has different approaches with different risks. And you can then do evaluation and say, okay, this company has failed because they took the risk here and this one didn't go right. But I have not taken that risk. I have taken maybe another risk. And I think this is what is very important. This is why I said when I am a skeptic, because for some companies, you have some scientific papers, you can evaluate your risk, and then you can decide, well, this is a risk I would not take, or this is a risk I would take. But there are others you cannot do that. And this is my worry, that when you don't do that, and I think in some way there should be some type of review in which you say, okay, I think my approach will go faster because I do this and this and this, and my risk is X, Y, Z. And then if you have a common risk, then it's a problem because it affects you. But if you don't, you can defend the position.
I'm tempted just to try ask Brandon's view on this.
Yeah.
So say hypothetically TAE go down in flames. What would be the CFS's advice for the social media strategy to mitigate this?
I mean, I really think that my answer is very, is very similar. Is that we need to push all of the private companies to be transparent in general. I think some of them are already, and I think the ones that aren't, it's incumbent on both the public and private sector to apply pressure to those entities to be transparent. Because exactly like you said, as long as you characterize the risks beforehand, I think a failure isn't necessarily a failure if you've been upfront and transparent about saying what the risk is. Then it's just trying something. And there was an earlier question about innovation. And I feel like in order to have a spirit of innovation, you need to allow some failures to happen. But you can't do it in a way where you say, just trust me, I'm going to do this thing. You have to do it in an open environment. And so I think that's really the key. So I totally agree.
Quick fire, because we're running out of time. Francesco, very quick question, please. Quick answer. There was one in the middle, and then there's a lady at the back there. So I don't know if we do them all, but we'll see.
Okay, I will try to be quick, but I would like to bring to this discussion my perspective here as the president of a consortium for the construction of the divertor tokamak test facility. Is a tokamak of jet class, 5 megaamps, 5.5 megaamps high field. And we have chosen, in this case, to have a public-private partnership in the form of a consortium. Because we speak of private-public partnership, but this can take a very different form and the very different legal agreement. So Italy has decided to put together all the research institution working in fusion and the largest private company working in energy.
What's your question?
So my question is, I believe that we should not underestimate the challenge with doing a public-private partnership, because it is an experiment it's a social experiment. We are putting together people with very different approaches to the problem, but I think it is worth doing this. Don't be afraid of doing this. Work together, public and private, and make, sorry, Chairman, and bring a positive message to the government. We published 1 week ago the plan of energy and climate, and Italy foresees 400 megawatt of fusion power in 2050.
Does anybody want to answer that question? Yep. Okay. Thank you very much, Anna. Gentleman at the back.
Should I ask a question or not?
I don't think there was actually a question. It was just a very good point.
So I have a question. Andreas Burkhardt, IGP Garching. Ambrosio has mentioned the volumetric Newton source twice, now. And it's, of course, something that the private would also very much profit from. And I don't know how willing the governments are to fund this thing. So my two questions are, what are your thoughts? Will this thing actually exist before before Demo and ARC? And two, would the private sector help to fund this? Would you come together and help to fund a volumetric Newton source?
Who would like to address that?
Short answer, yes.
And do you, like in general, the panel think this thing will exist before ARC and Demo?
Okay, maybe. So our approach in Europe is to have demo in two phases. The first will be the phase that would qualify the components, and the second phase will be the phase that will produce, 300 megawatt of electrical power. And we are evaluating at the moment the feasibility of a volumetric Newton source and the advantages that we would have to have that as a separate machines to perform the phase one of demo, if you like. And so to prepare the phase two to go quicker. And we are still in evaluation phase, so the project is still under feasibility assessment.
Last question, that lady there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, please go for it.
Okay, so my actually question was about also private and public partnership. And as we know, there is a program in US called Infuse, which supports public and private partnership. But when the problem is that it's a CRADA, right? It's like the program supports you, but if lawyers eventually say if that's okay, scientists at National Lab working on it. So I don't think this is like sustainable way to sponsor the partnerships. And in our case, in our collaboration, we waited 1 year for CRADA and we missed 2 experiments. We could work on it. So I'm wondering if panel have like idea about what could be a better way to arrange this type of partnerships.
Okay, so D3D is now open as a user facility. Private companies can sign up within 1 day, providing they agree not to patent things derived from the government program. So there are other ways of doing things. It takes 1 day, and we've got a case that's gone through in a day. So you can do things differently, but maybe people want to comment. Yeah. How to accelerate.
But this is what I was saying. I think if one defines, for instance, for open science, one defines the rules for open science, then you do open science, and it should not be, if you want to do experiments in a privately funded facility to publish a paper and that facility agrees, it should not be any different than anybody else. I think what is very important is to define the area of collaboration. And then you will have the same publication rules, etc., like anybody else.
Would some of the private companies like to comment on about how we can make partnership easier or faster? Not sure.
I mean, I cannot say much about how it is in US, and with this program, it really took such a long time for the lawyers to figure out the IP stuff. I can just say in Europe, again, I was surprised. For example, with the University of Darmstadt, we had a contract set up and it took, a couple of months, which I think is fair enough. And it's called IP for shares. So the IP that had been developed at the target laboratory at the university was completely transferred to focused energy. Not exclusive usage, but it was transferred. And in exchange, the university got some shares of the company. And this model seemed to work because academia, in this case the university, accepted that, it's their purpose, not only to educate people, but also to foster startups and economy. And if this fundamental understanding is not there, that we need to build up these economic structures in order to, solve these problems, because I'm really convinced it cannot be solved in academia alone. I think it's a twofold problem.
Oh, I'm sorry if I cut you off there, but we really have to. We've overrun our time slot, so thank you very much, panel. And thank you, audience, for participating. This session is closed.